Geoff, how are you today? Oh, we got him?
Hello?
There you go. Now I got him.
I hear you now.
Yeah,
All right,
there you go. How's everything going,
Jeff?
Geoff?
Apple juice over there, Ray? I'm good. I'm chugging my apple juice.
Yeah, I think I might have a little bit of the champagne that's just flowing through me right now with the Phillies celebration. I'm getting a little drunk with the idea of Red October. Maybe it's just spilling out on the airwaves.
Hey, man, it's been fun. I stayed up late last night to watch it all, and my heart broke on the when Duran gave up the home run, and then, bam, they win, and it was great.
They just keep finding a way, Geoff. They're making me believe it's getting dangerous over here.
Is that like a Philadelphia thing now where teams just find a way to win, even if it's not pretty?
Oh, what a fantastic segue by you. You want to take this chair? I think that was beautiful by you to get us to the birds. They did just find a way. And I want to first start with the big Geoff Mosher takeaway. You're giving me the headline of watching that game. What is the big takeaway from Geoff Mosher following that game?
Oh, man, the big takeaway. I mean, there's a couple of big takeaways. It just sort of depends what kind of person or fan, for those listening, you are. Are you a glass half full or a glass half empty? Obviously, I think going into Kansas City, beating a desperate Chiefs team that came out fired up. I mean, they really, they've got their issues, but they gave the Eagles a game, right? In an environment that's always hostile, tough to play, silent count. I think that's the first time starting for Tyler Steen where he's had to use the silent count because it's the first road start. Maybe he may have had one in Dallas earlier in his career, but with this line. But either way, I think anytime in the NFL you go on the road against a team like the Chiefs and win, it's a good thing, and it doesn't matter if it's not exactly a Picasso or a Rembrandt. But obviously, if you're taking the scalpel and forceps to it, there are things that the Eagles have shown you over the first 2 weeks that are concerns that you expect / hope / wonder how quickly they'll get that worked out within that's regards to the passing offense.
And let's go there with the passing offense, because it was a lot of our conversation yesterday with, hey, fantastic to get that win in Kansas City. A really good job of going on the road against the reigning AFC champs where they were in a desperate spot. Great job getting that win. But that passing offense right now, not where you would, I guess, expect a team with the talent they have to be. What are you seeing right now in this passing offense that needs to be corrected most?
Yeah, I mean, corrected is a tough word. Let's first go to the root of what I hear a lot of people saying, and I just myself don't believe it to be true, and that's just not my opinion. I've watched the tape. I've been fortunate to watch tape with some really smart people, former football players, former Eagles who've helped school me on things to look for and concepts. Greg Cosell is a part of our Inside the Birds family, and he's one of the top tape breakdown guys in all of the land, right? And the first thing you're looking for with new offensive coordinator Kevin Patullo is he doing something different? Is he trying to add something to this offense that it's not catered to do? Is he not suiting it to the strengths of his personnel? And I can definitively tell you that the offense conceptually is built and looks and is designed the same way it's been for the last few years. So the idea that it's Kevin Patullo's fault and he's doing something that the other guys weren't doing is completely false. Now, I'm not saying he's flawless, and obviously he's 2 games into the first time as a coordinator, and so there's a feel for a game. There's an understanding of when to call certain plays at the right time, and that's something that is developed along the way. And clearly, Kellen Moore came with that already, whereas Kevin Patullo didn't have it. Brian Johnson 2 years ago didn't have it at the NFL level. So I understand sort of people saying, oh, man, this reminds me of 2 years ago. But the difference is they have Saquon here, and conceptually they're keeping things the same. So when Kevin Patullo is calling a certain play from his menu, that menu isn't all that different from the menu of last year and the year before, because the Eagles understand this better than anyone because it's their building and their players. They understand what their offense should look like, how it should run, what is the best way to run it. They're not like a team that runs like 1,000 different route concepts and route designs. They do what they do really well. They run the ball typically, and then they try to get the shot play that Jalen Hurts likes so much. And so when you ask what's corrected Ray, he took about 4 or 5 deep shots in the game against the Chiefs, but only one of them connected. Obviously, it was the most important one to Devontae Smith, but he missed Devontae earlier in the game on a similar one. He missed A.J. Brown on one that kind of I think he got hit, or there was so much traffic in his face. You might remember it was pretty early. It floated. A.J. actually caught it out of bounds and got hit, and everybody thought it was a late hit. There were about 4 or 5 plays that you typically see him and Brown and Devontae connect on that in the first 2 weeks just haven't been there. And, there is a little bit of Greg Cosell mentioned this on our show Inside the Tape that'll be out later today and later this week on offense, that it does look like maybe his eyes aren't in the right spot as where they typically tend to be on those on some of those passes. So that's stuff that you can go back, look at the film, coach it. And I don't have the biggest concern right now because I think they're also lacking the home run element from Saquon Barkley that's carried them last year, and I'm sure that with the Rams coming to town, we'll probably see that. So I'm not overly concerned. Granted, every team is trying to come after you and do some things, and certainly Spags came after him in a really effective way. But I'm not seeing anything radically different in the structure or the concept of their offense, more so just the execution.
You just hit on something I wanted to get to with the Saquon portion right there about generating explosives, and they just haven't. Whether it be not hitting those shots, whether it not being having Saquon run, that's the biggest thing from me from the offense for the 2 weeks is the explosive plays, whether it be through the passing game, whether it be through the running game, not being there. That's the biggest thing early on that I would say is the departure from what we saw a year ago, and not to say it won't happen, but that it hasn't happened yet.
100%. I mean, week 1 Cowboys, you get your 51-yard pass to Dotson, and that's basically the only pass I think that traveled more than 10 to 15 yards in the air. And then the same thing against the Chiefs, right? You just don't see the explosive pass plays until Devontae grabs that back shoulder one. But yet both of them at the time were very, very important plays, and part of the Eagles got it when they needed it. And then with Saquon, that's one. It's sort of puzzling, but there's no rhyme or reason to it. So yesterday, Nick Sirianni was asked in his press conference, well, how do you improve upon explosive plays? And God bless Nick, he has to answer a question that's very difficult to answer, because he says something like, well, you just go back and practice it. Well, no, you don't go on the practice field and say, okay, let's run our non-explosive plays and then let's practice our explosive plays, right? The explosive plays just happen. You don't practice the reverse hurdle. So you practice your run plays and you hope that you get the extra blocks and that Saquon kicks it in the second gear. When I've watched the tape, I don't think Saquon looks slower or less athletic. I don't think that's an issue. Maybe Dallas Goedert being out this past game takes away a little bit of a lot actually, of your good run blocking. But it's not like Saquon had a bad game. And for the most part, Saquon's good for mostly 3 to 6 yard carries, couple of negatives every once in a while, and then his yards per carry average and the team's yards per carry average is sort of skewed by the fact that he breaks 2 long ones, usually in the second half, right, last year, that completely throw the yard per carry average a little bit out of whack and make him one of the most lethal guys in the game, and that just hasn't happened yet. But if I'm going to bank on something that they haven't done improving pretty quickly and you're going to see it pretty quickly, I would think that would be the one.
It's interesting to say that. We're talking to Geoff Mosher of Inside the Birds, Philly Voice, here on the Comcast Business Hotline. And that's kind of where I'm at with that. It's like if I'm going to bet against something, I'm probably not going to bet against Saquon Barkley. Just for the first 2 weeks, there has been that missing element of it. To this team, and we try and, the medium here, we try and find identity. We try and put things in a box here. The identity that I'm getting through 2 weeks that has been something that's been a calling card, I think even going back to last season, is you have a very good defense that's opportunistic. You have a very talented offense, but let's basically let the other team make the mistake. Let's win that turnover battle, and it seems like that's the belief of if we can just be on the right side of that battle, we're going to be good enough to take out pretty much anyone. Would you say that fits as the identity of this group?
That is exactly what I was referring to, right, when I was talking to you about the offensive design and concept. You don't see the Eagles run a whole lot of four-man or five-man routes that have a whole lot of destinations in the middle of the field because Jalen doesn't want to throw the ball in the middle field. He's not comfortable throwing. He'd rather tuck and run or even take a sack than throw a pass that he might consider too aggressive for him or turnover worthy. He wants to throw outside the numbers. That's why you see a lot of comebacks, deep posts, fly routes. Every once in a while, he will, against the blitz, when you have more one-on-one, he'll throw that slant to AJ or that quick in to AJ or to Devontae. I'm not saying he doesn't ever throw, but for the most part, the way the offense is designed is to cater to his strengths and limit his lack of desire to throw over the middle and use his running game element. And that's his mindset too. So they are fantastically good at not turning the ball over. And they are even better at creating takeaways. And that's really why they win. I mean, it doesn't just go back to last year, but I mean, think about the NFC Championship game. I know they scored 55 points and it looks great, but they also turned the ball over 3 times and really early in that game to set the tone. That has been, at least through 2 weeks, those turnovers that they've got, the Miles Sanders fumble and the Travis Kelce, whatever you want to call that lands in Makuba's hands, it's the interception, were probably the 2 biggest plays from a momentum standpoint and an outcome standpoint in the game.
And looking at things that made them successful, talk about that defense. Vic Fangio was asked today about the halftime adjustments. He said they're overblown, that it's about making the adjustments in the game at any point. His ability to adjust on the fly, how do you best contextualize what you're watching just in terms of the tactician and the defensive coordinator that the Eagles have?
Yes, and by the way, I love Vic's candor and how honest he is.
So great.
I probably every single coach I've ever spoken to has told me that the idea of halftime adjustments is overrated, that you're constantly adjusting in games, or that sometimes you don't adjust when everybody says, where's the adjustment? Because you have a belief that what your process is going to work. It might take some time, or the other team just had a temporary answer. Let's see if they can continue to do it for the entire game. In fact, you're on social media, so sometimes you'll see an offense go down and score on its first drive in like 11 plays, and people will be like, "Where's the adjustment? Where's the adjustment?" And I'm like, why would you adjust 7 or 8 plays into your whole game plan? Because for one drive, something happened where the team moved the ball. But Vic did acknowledge that some of the things he was doing well in his pressure schemes was also working against him because Mahomes was beating them with his rushing. And in the second half, now Vic didn't come out and say it because he doesn't want to give up strategy, but in the second half, Jalen Hunt dropped back into a spy position a little bit more than he was doing or anybody was doing in the first half. So they were clearly making a change there as far as not stopping with the pressure, but at least having somebody looking out, someone with great athleticism like Jalen Hunt, to look out for Mahomes in case he did scramble.
And there it is. And that's why, Geoff, we come to you for these things, because he's not going to tell us that. But you told us that on that one. Now I'm going to go back and look with a critical eye at the whole thing, because that was the first half sitting on the couch, the couch coach for me. Like, hey, man, you might want to spy this Mahomes guy. He's pretty good. I think he could scramble a little bit. Might want to find a spy there. And there it was. It was Jalen Hunt for you in that second half.
Yeah, it was. And it was a good formula. And honestly, I think that whole game reflected Vic's prowess in just having a feel for the moment. I talked about Patullo. You gotta learn to have a feel for the game and what to call at the right time. I thought it was pretty masterful that he had, he called no blitzes in the Super Bowl. And then he obviously called several blitzes in this game against the Chiefs, which I think sped up Mahomes' clock even when he wasn't pressured. I think you saw some throws from Patrick Mahomes that went wide or high or just a little off the mark at times, even when he did have his feet set, because he either didn't trust his protection or his internal clock was sped up by the thought that he was probably going to see a pass rush.
And one last one for you here, Geoff. Looking ahead now, we talked about the mastermind of Fangio. Obviously, it's a great matchup. Anytime you get Fangio play calling on one side, McVay on the other. Looking at this Rams matchup, what do you think is the biggest storyline you're taking into this game come Sunday?
All right, let's get really wonky like football. Okay,
I like this. I like this already.
You're not going to have anybody on the radio today who's going to talk about this. I guarantee you. Unless like you have like Bill Walsh coming up or I don't know something.
You think I'm booking
But,
Bill Walsh? You know me, Geoff.
Well, listen, I wouldn't put it past you. If you can get Bill Walsh or Bill Parcells, then, Ray, I know how popular you are. But here's the thing. We've seen Quinyon Mitchell used differently for 2 weeks, right? In the season opener, they put him against Pickens. You couldn't put him on CeeDee Lamb because Lamb moves around too much. He's an outside guy. He's an inside guy. I mean, he's constantly in motion. And then you have to, if you're going to do that trail or shadow coverage and put Quinyon Mitchell on a guy, you can't have him moving from spot inside, outside, and stuff that throws off everything in the secondary. Pickens generally lines up at the X, so they put him there. So against the Chiefs, this is really interesting. He stayed on one side, but he basically played to the field side. And Adoree Jackson played the boundary. Now, most people I speak to, whether they're coaches, coordinators, players on defense, like to put their best corner on the boundary, all right? And then their second guy best on the field. For whatever reason, Vic put Mitchell on the field and Adoree Jackson on the boundary. So we've seen two different usages of Mitchell in the first two games, unconventionally. And now you're going to see sort of like what you saw with the Cowboys, two really good receivers in Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. Nacua moves around a lot like Lamb. So I imagine if Vic wants to repeat what he did week one, he's going to put Mitchell on Devontae Adams and keep him there. And that's going to put Jackson on Nacua for the most part. And that didn't work out great for Jackson against CeeDee Lamb. And Nacua is just as short-handed, almost, they're both really, really good and play the game similarly. A little bit bigger, Nacua is. So I'm just sort of fascinated to see how Vic employs his corners in this game and strategizes, knowing that the Rams receivers are really good and will pose a threat to Adoree.
Man, my football IQ, just talking to you, just goes through the roof, Geoff. It's always great, and I appreciate the breakdown there of what we might see. That secondary is going to be what a lot of people are watching. But, Geoff, always great talking with you. I appreciate you taking the time with us today.
Hey, it's Ray Dunn from the Midday Show. Thank you so much for watching our content. If you want more videos, you can click right here. Or how about you subscribe right here so you stay in the know on all that's coming from 97.5 The Fanatic.